AITA for walking away after my wife's family joked about her being with another man? I'm John, 39, and on the night this happened, I had been Lauren's husband for 11 years. Ours was the kind of marriage where I still knew exactly how she liked her coffee, where she still bought the cereal I preferred even when we were barely speaking, and where silence had become so normal that it almost felt like a piece of furniture. I'm not going to pretend we were perfect. We weren't. Things had been strained for about a year. There were dinners where the only sounds were forks against plates and the dishwasher humming from the kitchen. There were nights when Lauren came to bed with her back already turned, and mornings when I stood next to her at the counter making coffee, both of us pretending we weren't avoiding the obvious. But there is a difference between a marriage going quiet and your wife letting her whole family laugh at you for not knowing she had already replaced you. The first changes were small enough that I let myself feel guilty for noticing them. Lauren used to leave her phone anywhere, the kitchen island, a couch cushion, the bathroom counter, wedged between the seats of the car. Then, almost overnight, it was always either face down or in her hand. She changed her passcode after years of using the same one and told me it was because people should have basic privacy. That sounded reasonable. I wasn't the kind of husband who wanted to police a phone, so I backed off. Then she started smiling at messages in a way she hadn't smiled at me in months. Not just laughing, smiling. Soft little private smiles, her thumb hovering over the screen like she was choosing the perfect response. If I asked, "Who's that?" she would lock the phone and say, "Can I have one thing that's private, John?" The way she said my name made me feel ridiculous for asking. There were late nights, too. Not every week, not enough to form a clear pattern right away, but enough to leave a mark on my mind. She would say she was going to Brooke's because Brooke was having a hard time, or she was stopping by her parents' house because Diane needed help moving boxes around, or she was going to grab dinner with some people and would be home before I went to bed. Before, I would have known which people. Now, if I asked, her face tightened. "Why does everything have to be an interrogation?" she said once, standing in our bedroom with one earring in and the other in her hand. "It was one question," I said. "It's never just one question with you. You do this calm act like you're not accusing me, but you are." I remember looking at her in the mirror. She was applying lipstick, her mouth slightly open, her eyes focused on herself. I wanted to say, "Then stop acting like someone with something to hide." But I didn't. I swallowed it because I had spent years believing that being measured was the same as being fair. That was my mistake. I thought staying calm meant I was being fair. They thought it meant I was too weak to react. Lauren's family started changing around me before the dinner, too. I noticed it in pieces. Her cousin Brooke, 34, had always been loud, sharp, and a little too comfortable pushing people for a reaction. She was the kind of person who said cruel things and then hid behind, "Relax, it was a joke." Within Lauren's family, Brooke was treated less like a cousin and more like a younger sister who got away with everything because everyone was tired of correcting her. At a family brunch a few months before the anniversary dinner, I walked into the kitchen while Brooke and Lauren were whispering by the fridge. Brooke saw me first. Her mouth snapped shut so fast it almost made a sound. Lauren smiled too brightly and said, "Hey, we were just talking about Grace's casserole." Aunt Grace was standing 10 feet away, putting plates on the table. There was no casserole. Brooke leaned against the counter and said, "Some husbands are too trusting. It's almost sweet." I looked at her. Is that supposed to mean something? She held up both hands. "See? Sensitive." Lauren rolled her eyes, but she didn't look angry at Brooke. She looked annoyed at me for noticing. Diane, my mother-in-law, had her own way of saying things. She was 62, polished, controlled, and very proud of being the moral center of the family. She hosted every holiday like she was being graded by an invisible committee. She gave advice in a voice soft enough to sound kind until you realized it was wrapped around a knife. That same brunch, while people were gathering around the kitchen island, Diane touched my arm and said, "A man has to keep his wife feeling chosen." I said, "Is Lauren saying she doesn't?" Diane smiled. "Marriage is work, John. Sometimes quiet men think not causing problems is the same as loving well." I remember glancing at Lauren. She was across the room, laughing at something on her phone. I should have pushed harder then. I know that now. But in the moment, all I heard was a mother defending her daughter in a marriage that had gotten colder than either of us wanted to admit. I told myself Diane was meddling. I told myself Brooke was immature. I told myself the tight little silences when I entered a room were probably about something else. The worst lies are the ones you help build because you don't want to seem paranoid. A few weeks later, I came home early and heard Lauren on the phone in the laundry room. Her voice was low, the way people speak when they want to be heard by exactly one person. "I'm lonely in my own marriage," she said. "He's there, but he's not really there." I stopped in the hallway, keys still in my hand. She said, "No, I know. I just need to decide what I actually want." I stepped into the doorway. "Then talk to me, not everyone else." Lauren spun around so hard the dryer shook behind her. "I have to go," she said into the phone, then hung up. "Who was that?" I asked. "My mother." "And you're telling her you're lonely instead of telling me." She laughed once, not because anything was funny. "See? That tone right there." "What tone?" "The one where you act calm, so I sound unreasonable." I stared at her. "I'm trying not to turn this into a fight." "You think that makes you noble?" she asked. "Sometimes it makes you impossible to reach." That line stayed with me because there was enough truth in it to make me question the rest. I wasn't always easy. I could withdraw when I felt attacked. I could choose quiet over vulnerability. I was good at fixing practical problems and bad at saying, "I'm scared you don't love me anymore." So I tried. I asked Lauren to go to counseling. She said she would think about it. I planned a dinner at home, made the pasta she liked, and she came in 40 minutes late with a plastic container from somewhere else. "I forgot," she said, setting her purse on a chair. I looked at the 2 plates on the table and said, "You forgot dinner?" "I had a long day." "You didn't text." She sighed like I had trapped her. I said I was sorry. But she didn't sound sorry. She sounded inconvenienced. By the time her parents' anniversary dinner came around, I knew something was wrong. I just didn't know how wrong. That matters. I had suspicions. I didn't have the truth. Lauren told me about the dinner the way someone announces an obligation they've already decided you're attending. "Mom and Dad are doing something casual Saturday," she said. "Folding tables, Costco dessert, nothing fancy. Please don't make it heavy." I was standing by the sink rinsing a coffee mug. I wasn't planning to. "You say that, but your silence makes people uncomfortable." I turned off the water. "Lauren, do you want me there?" She hesitated just long enough to answer the real question. "Of course I do," she said. On Saturday, she changed outfits 3 times. Then she chose my shirt for me. That used to be sweet. This time, it felt like she was dressing a prop. "Wear the blue one," she said. "It looks more relaxed." "Do I not look relaxed?" "You look like you're going to a deposition." I almost said, maybe I should be. Instead, I buttoned the shirt. The dinner was at her parents' house, the same place where I had spent 11 years of holidays, birthdays, and awkward Sunday meals. The dining room table was extended with 2 folding tables, and none of the chairs matched. There were paper napkins with silver trim, a tray of rolls still in the plastic container, a big salad nobody touched, and a sheet cake on the counter with Diane and Harold's anniversary written in blue frosting. People hovered around the kitchen island with wine glasses and plastic cups. Diane moved through the room correcting plates and refilling drinks. Harold, 65, mostly stayed near the drink cooler, quiet as usual, smiling when spoken to and avoiding anything that looked like conflict. Aunt Grace gave me a hug that lasted half a second too long. When she pulled back, she looked tired. "You doing all right, John?" she asked. "Sure," I said. "Why?" Her eyes flicked toward Lauren, then away. "No reason." That was the whole night in miniature. Everyone had no reason. Dinner started normally. People talked about Diane and Harold's early years. Someone made a joke about Harold burning toast on their first anniversary. Diane pretended to be offended. Lauren sat beside me, close enough that our shoulders nearly touched, but her body was angled away. Brooke sat across from us, already a glass and a half in, smiling like she had been waiting for an audience. At first, her comments were vague. "You know what's funny?" she said, cutting into her chicken. "A woman can leave a marriage emotionally months before a husband notices." A few people chuckled, too quickly. I looked at her. "Is that supposed to be a joke?" Brooke tilted her head. "Only if it lands." Lauren gave a small laugh and took a sip of wine. Diane said, "Brooke," in that warning tone mothers use when they want the appearance of discipline, not the reality of it. Brooke leaned back. "What? We're all adults." Harold stared into his drink. Aunt Grace looked at her plate. That was the first moment something inside me shifted. It didn't break, it shifted. Because when people are shocked, They look at the person who said the shocking thing. When they are familiar with a secret, they look down and wait for it to pass. Brooke kept going. Some husbands think calm is a personality, she said. Meanwhile, the wife is out here living a whole second life. The table went strange. Not silent, exactly. Smaller. Forks slowed down. Someone coughed. One of Lauren's uncles muttered, "Jesus, Brooke." I turned to Lauren. "Do you want to explain why your cousin thinks this is funny?" Lauren's face hardened. "Don't start. I'm asking a normal question." "No," she said quietly. "You're performing." That word. Performing. While we were sitting at her parents' anniversary dinner with her cousin, turning my marriage into table entertainment. Then Diane stood and asked everyone to raise a glass for the anniversary toast. For a minute, I thought the moment had passed. Diane gave a little speech about loyalty, patience, and keeping a family strong. She talked about how marriage required forgiveness. She looked at Lauren when she said forgiveness. She looked at me when she said humility. Then Brooke stood too. "Oh, I want to add one," she said. Diane's mouth tightened. "Brooke, sit down." Brooke ignored her and lifted her glass. To Lauren finally finding a man who keeps her smiling. It happened fast and slow at the same time. A couple of people laughed because they thought they were supposed to. Someone near the end of the table whispered, "Adrian." Not loudly, but loud enough. Diane snapped, "Brooke." Brooke grinned. "What?" Lauren laughed. Not a startled laugh. Not a nervous laugh. A real one. Small, maybe embarrassed, but not shocked. Then she said, "John's too calm to notice." That was the moment I understood. Not suspected. Understood. I looked around the table. Nobody was confused. Nobody said, "Who's Adrian?" Nobody asked what was going on. Diane looked angry at Brooke for saying it out loud, not at Lauren for what it meant. Harold looked exhausted, like he had been waiting for a bill to come due. Aunt Grace had tears in her eyes and still said nothing. Brooke looked straight at me. "Did you seriously not know?" she asked. "Or were you just pretending because it was easier?" Lauren set her glass down. John was always better at acting calm than being a husband. A few people laughed again, quieter this time. I remember the scrape of my chair legs against the floor. I remember the little square of butter melting on my roll. I remember Lauren's hand resting beside her plate, her wedding ring catching the dining room light. I set down my drink carefully. "Thanks," I said. That answered everything. Lauren blinked. "John." I stood up. Diane said, "Let's keep this classy." I looked at her. "You should have said that earlier." Then I walked out. Nobody stopped me until I reached the driveway. The night air hit my face, cold enough to make my eyes water. I was halfway to my car when Lauren came after me in heels, the front door still open behind her. "Don't embarrass me in front of my family," she hissed. That sentence did something nothing else had done. It settled me. Not "I'm sorry." Not "let me explain." Not even "you misunderstood." "Don't embarrass me." I turned around. "You handled that part inside." Her face went red. "You're making this uglier than it had to be." I didn't make the toast. It was a joke. Then go back in and laugh. For once, Lauren had no immediate comeback. I got in my car and locked the doors. My hands were shaking so badly I didn't start the engine right away. Through the windshield, I could see her standing in the driveway, arms wrapped around herself, looking more angry than scared. My phone buzzed before I even backed out. "Lauren, are you seriously leaving?" "Lauren, you're proving my point." "Lauren, John, answer me." I didn't answer. I called Caleb. Caleb had been my best friend since before Lauren. He was 40, blunt, loyal, and not easily impressed by drama. When he picked up, I tried to speak and nothing came out. He said, "Where are you?" "In the car." "Are you safe to drive?" "I don't know." "Then don't. Put it in park. Breathe." I told him what happened in short pieces. Brooke's toast. Adrian's name. Lauren laughing. The table knowing. The driveway. When I finished, Caleb was quiet for 3 seconds. Then he said, "Listen to me. Do not go home and explode. Do not leave angry voicemails. Do not text threats. Do not give them a clip they can use. I want to go back in there." "No, you don't. You want them to feel what you feel. They won't. Not tonight." I pressed my forehead against the steering wheel. Caleb said, "You can be angry later. Tonight, be smart. Open your notes app and write down everything. Exact words. Names. Who was there? What time you left. That feels insane." Good. Insane is better than arrested, recorded, or rewritten. So I wrote it down. Sitting in my car outside my in-laws' house, with Lauren sending texts that went from demanding to pleading to accusing, I started a clean timeline. 8:14 p.m. Brooke. To Lauren finally finding a man who keeps her smiling. Unknown relative whispered, Adrian. Lauren, John's too calm to notice. Brooke, did you seriously not know? Or were you just pretending because it was easier? Lauren, John was always better at acting calm than being a husband. I wrote until my hands stopped shaking. Then I drove to a hotel Caleb booked for me while we were still on the phone. At 11:36 p.m., Lauren sent one more message. Lauren, you abandoned me in front of my family. I stared at it for a long time. Then I took a screenshot and put the phone face down on the nightstand. I slept maybe 2 hours. The next morning, I called Caleb again. He answered like he had been waiting. Do not go home alone if she's there, he said before hello. I need my documents. Then we do it clean. Lauren had texted that she was staying at her parents' house because she didn't feel emotionally safe with me coming and going. That would have worked on me once. I would have rushed to reassure her that I would never hurt her. I would have let the accusation pull me into defending myself instead of asking why she was suddenly using that kind of language. This time, I took another screenshot. Caleb came with me to the house just after noon. We didn't touch Lauren's things. I packed my passport, birth certificate, tax records, mortgage papers, insurance documents, a few old family photos from my side, and the watch my father had left me. I took enough clothes for a couple of weeks and left the rest. The house felt different. Not empty. Hostile. The coffee mugs were still in the cabinet. Lauren's sweater was still hanging over a kitchen chair. Our wedding photo was still on the hallway wall. Both of us smiling like people who had not yet learned what they were capable of doing to each other. I stood in front of it longer than I meant to. Caleb said, You okay? No. Good answer. I took the photo down. Not to smash it. Not for drama. I put it in a drawer face down because I couldn't keep walking past it. I rented a small storage unit that afternoon. The receipt went into the folder Caleb told me to keep. Every practical step felt ridiculous and necessary. Storage unit. Hotel receipt. Screenshots. Notes. Copies of account statements. It was like building a bridge out of scraps while the ground behind me burned. On Monday, I met Rachel. Rachel was the divorce attorney Caleb found through someone he trusted. She was 46, direct, and completely uninterested in theatrics. Her office had no dramatic leather chairs or move-a-lawyer energy. Just a conference table, a legal pad, and a woman who listened without making sympathy her main personality. When I finished telling her the dinner story, she tapped her pen once against the pad. Anger is expensive in a divorce, she said. Let's make sure yours stays organized. I'm not trying to destroy her, I said. No, Rachel said. You're trying to prevent her from destroying the record. That sentence landed hard. She asked what accounts were joint, what accounts were solely mine, whether Lauren was an authorized user on any credit cards, whose income went where, whether we had shared debts, and whether there were any children. There weren't. That simplified some things. It didn't make it painless. Rachel was clear about what not to do. Do not drain joint accounts, she said. Do not shut off utilities in a shared home. Do not post rants. Do not harass Adrian. Do not turn evidence into entertainment. You can tell the truth. You just need to tell it cleanly. She told me to open a separate account for my own income going forward, keep records of any necessary shared payments, and communicate with Lauren in writing or through her office. She also told me I could cancel Lauren's authorized user access on a credit card that was solely in my name because Lauren had no legal ownership of that credit line. Do not confuse silence with surrender, Rachel said. We are building a record. So that is what I did. I opened a separate account. I changed passwords on accounts that were mine alone. I canceled Lauren's authorized user card on my personal credit card and saved the confirmation. I kept paying what Rachel told me to keep paying. I didn't touch what she told me not to touch. Lauren discovered the card cancellation 2 days later. Lauren, are you kidding me? My card got declined. Lauren, you're financially abusing me now? Lauren, John, answer me. Rachel told me not to answer directly. Her office sent a short email explaining that Lauren had been removed as an authorized user from a card held solely in my name, and that necessary shared financial matters could be addressed through counsel. Lauren called me 11 times that night. I watched my phone light up on the hotel desk. Then came Diane. Diane, John, this is not how a decent man handles pain. Diane, Marriage is bigger than one mistake. Diane, you need to protect the family's dignity. I almost replied. Which mistake? The affair or the toast? I didn't. Caleb's voice was in my head. Don't send them a weapon with your own voice on it. The first piece of proof that the family had known more than they admitted came from Brooke, because of course it did. It was Thursday morning. I was drinking burnt hotel coffee and reviewing bank statements when my phone buzzed with a message from Brooke. It was a screenshot of a text conversation, sent without any explanation. I opened it before she could delete it. The screenshot showed Brooke texting Lauren from weeks earlier. Brooke, Diane is freaking out about Adrian being at Grace's brunch. She says be careful. Lauren, Mom needs to calm down. John doesn't know him. Brooke, yeah, but Grace looked weird when you two left together. Lauren, tell them I went home with you if anyone asks. Brooke, already did. You owe me. I took a screenshot of the screenshot. Then I saved it to the evidence folder. 30 seconds later, Brooke texted again. Brooke, ignore that. Wrong John. Wrong John. Right truth. I forwarded it to Rachel and then sat on the edge of the hotel bed, staring at the wall. Until that point, I had been trying to wrap my mind around Lauren cheating and her family suspecting. The screenshot made it something else. Brooke had covered for her. Diane had known enough to be freaking out. Aunt Grace had seen something. Lauren had been confident I didn't know Adrian. I didn't cry then. I felt too cold for it. That afternoon, Aunt Grace called. Her name on my screen surprised me. Grace wasn't dramatic. She didn't stir things up. She was the kind of relative who washed dishes during arguments, so she could avoid choosing sides. I answered in the parking lot outside Rachel's office. John, she said, her voice trembling. Are you alone? Yes. I'm in my car, she said. I don't want Diane hearing me. That sentence told me enough to stay quiet. Grace took a shaky breath. I should have said something at dinner. I was ashamed that I didn't. Were you surprised when Brooke said Adrian's name? I asked. There was a long pause. No. The word landed heavier than any explanation could have. She told me Adrian had been at a small brunch at her house months earlier. Lauren introduced him as a friend, someone from her circle, vague enough to avoid details. Grace said she didn't like how close they stood in the kitchen. She saw Adrian touch Lauren's lower back while moving past her, and Lauren didn't move away. Later, Grace saw them leave within minutes of each other. I asked Diane about it, Grace said. She told me not to make trouble. She said Lauren was figuring out her life, and John didn't need to know until Lauren decided what life she wanted. My mouth went dry. Those exact words. I asked. Close, Grace said. I'm sorry. I thought somebody closer to you would tell you. That was cowardly of me. I believed her. That didn't make it hurt less. After we hung up, I checked the shared home phone account because Diane still sometimes called the house line out of habit, and voicemail to email was connected to a shared folder we both had access to. I wasn't expecting anything. I think part of me needed to look because Grace's words were too specific. There it was. A voicemail from Diane to Lauren from a month before the dinner. It had been transcribed automatically. Lauren, it's Mom. I know you don't want to lecture, but you need to be careful. Brooke talks too much, and Grace is not stupid. John doesn't need to know until you decide what life you want. If this Adrian thing is serious, handle it quietly. Don't blow up your marriage before you know where you're landing. I played it once. Diane's voice was calm, motherly, concerned. Not concerned about me. Not concerned about right or wrong. Concerned about Lauren landing safely. Rachel listened to the voicemail the next day with no visible reaction except a slight tightening around her eyes. This matters, she said, not because it guarantees some dramatic courtroom victory. It probably won't. But it stops them from claiming you abandoned the marriage without cause. It also shows a pattern. Keep it clean. By then, I had more than the dinner notes, the screenshot, and the voicemail. I had the doorbell camera footage from nights Lauren claimed to be sleeping at Brooke's, showing her leaving the house late with a small overnight bag and returning the next morning in the same clothes. I had a rideshare receipt charged to a shared account that lined up with a night she told me she was at a family thing. I had a hotel bar receipt that made sense only after I saw Adrian's name. I had a holiday party photo someone had posted months earlier where Adrian's hand was on Lauren's lower back while she leaned into him like it was the most natural thing in the world. None of it was one big movie moment. It was worse than that. It was ordinary. Digital crumbs. Half-truths. People looking away. A marriage being dismantled in small decisions while I stood inside it, trying to be reasonable. Lauren shifted tactics once she realized I wasn't coming home to argue. At first, she was angry. Lauren, you're punishing me. Lauren, you don't get to act like you were perfect. Lauren, I was lonely, John. Then she got softer. Lauren, I don't want to end 11 years like this. Lauren, can we just talk without lawyers? Lauren, I miss who we used to be. Then, when Rachel sent the first formal notice, Lauren became public. She posted a photo of a sunset with a caption that made my stomach twist. Sometimes people walk out, the second marriage gets hard. I'm learning that vows mean different things to different people. Please respect my privacy while I heal. Diane commented within minutes. Vows are supposed to mean something. Proud of you for choosing grace. Brooke added a heart emoji, then wrote, some people love being the victim once their pride gets bruised. I stared at the post for longer than I should have. It wasn't viral. It wasn't even public beyond her circle, but it was aimed like a dart. Friends from years back began sending careful messages. Hey man, heard things are rough. Hope you're okay. Lauren says you left. Is that true? Not trying to get involved, just confused. That was the moment I understood Rachel's warning. Lauren had not only cheated. She had been preparing a story where the cheating was a symptom and I was the disease. I was cold. I was distant. I was emotionally absent. I had walked out instead of fighting. The family group chat lit up the same night. Diane, John, you need to stop punishing Lauren. Brooke, he loves the attention now. Diane, this family has been through enough. Brooke, he's really going to blow up a whole family over one dinner? One of Lauren's uncles sent a facepalm emoji. Someone else wrote, maybe everyone should cool off. Then Brooke wrote, he can't handle that Lauren wanted to be happy. I had my thumb over the keyboard. I wanted to unload everything. I wanted to tell Brooke she was lucky I hadn't posted her screenshot under Lauren's sunset. I wanted to ask Diane if grace was what she called coaching her daughter through a cover-up. Instead, I called Rachel. She listened, then said, you have a right to defend yourself. But do not rant. Do not speculate. Do not insult. Send the truth like a record, not like a grenade. I spent the next 2 hours building the cleanest timeline I could. Dates, quotes, screenshots, file labels. Nothing sexual. Nothing exaggerated. No name calling. No dramatic captions. Just what happened. The dinner quotes, written the night they happened. Lauren's texts afterward accusing me of abandoning her. Brooke's accidental screenshot about Adrian at Grace's brunch and her cover story. Diane's voicemail transcription. The doorbell footage timestamps, described but not attached in full. The rideshare receipt that lined up with Lauren's supposed night at Brooke's. The holiday party photo where Adrian's hand was on Lauren's lower back. The notice from Rachel showing I had left through legal channels and was addressing shared obligations properly. Before sending it, I sat in the hotel room and read it twice. My heart was pounding. My body wanted revenge. My hands wanted a fight. But the document wasn't a fight. It was a mirror. At 9:17 p.m., I sent one message to the family group chat. I won't argue with edited stories anymore. Here's the full timeline. Then I attached the document. For about 30 seconds, nothing happened. Then the read receipts started appearing. Brooke reacted first. Brooke, are you insane? Diane, John, take this down. Brooke, this is private. I replied once. It stopped being private when you made it dinner entertainment. Aunt Grace wrote, Lauren, is any of this untrue? Nobody sent an emoji after that. Lauren came online. The little typing bubble appeared, vanished, appeared again. Lauren, you're humiliating me. I typed slowly. No, you did that at dinner. I'm just done letting you narrate it. Brooke sent 3 messages in a row. Brooke, it was one joke. Brooke, you're acting like we killed someone. Brooke, you're seriously going to destroy a family because your pride got hurt? Before I could respond, Harold finally did. Harold, Brooke, stop typing. That was all. And somehow it was the loudest message in the chat. Diane tried to regain control. Diane, families handle pain privately. Aunt Grace, we didn't handle it. We hid it. Diane, I was protecting my daughter. Aunt Grace, no, you were protecting the lie. Then Harold wrote again. Harold, Lauren, you made fools of everyone who defended you. Lauren left the chat. Brooke left 2 minutes later. Diane didn't leave. She called me instead. I didn't answer. Then she sent a voicemail I also didn't play until the next morning. Her tone had changed. Less moral. more frightened. John, this has gone far enough, she said. You've made your point. There are people seeing things who don't need to see them. Adrian has a life. Lauren has a life. We all have to live after this. Adrian has a life. That was the first time Diane said his name to me. I forwarded the voicemail to Rachel. The timeline didn't ruin Lauren's life. It did what truth often does when people have been relying on silence. It rearranged the room. Relatives who had laughed at dinner stopped messaging. A few sent apologies that sounded like they had been typed with shaking hands. I'm sorry I didn't say anything. I thought you knew. That dinner was wrong. One cousin wrote, I laughed because I was uncomfortable, not because I thought it was funny. I know that doesn't make it better. He was right. It didn't. But I appreciated that he didn't pretend otherwise. Lauren's version of events collapsed almost immediately. The sunset post disappeared. Diane deleted her comment. Brooke stopped posting vague quotes about loyalty and peace. Adrian became a problem in a way he apparently hadn't been when I was the only one being humiliated. I never sent anything directly to his fiancée. I didn't know her, and Rachel told me not to turn my divorce into a crusade. But families are not sealed containers. Someone forwarded the timeline to someone who knew someone, and within days, Adrian's fiancée had enough to confront him. I know because Lauren called me from an unknown number. I answered by mistake while leaving a grocery store. You sent it to her? Lauren demanded. No. Don't lie to me. I sent the timeline to the people who were calling me a liar and a coward. What they did with it is not mine to manage. You had no right to bring Adrian into this. I stood beside my car with a bag of groceries in one hand and almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because there are sentences so absurd your brain has to choose between laughter and screaming. You brought Adrian into our marriage, I said. She went quiet. Then she said, he won't even talk to me now. There it was. The panic under the anger. Adrian, the man who kept her smiling, folded the second the affair threatened his own engagement and professional image. One of the documents I had showed him and Lauren together at a holiday party connected to his work circle. I later heard there were questions asked about whether he had blurred lines he shouldn't have blurred. I don't know the details. I didn't need to. Lauren forwarded one of his messages to me during a spiral she probably regretted. Adrian, I can't be involved in this mess. You need to handle your marriage and stop dragging my name through family drama. He had been brave when I was the only person being humiliated. He got careful once his own life was attached. Lauren's arrogance drained fast after that. When she realized Adrian wasn't waiting with open arms, she tried to come back to the marriage as if we were negotiating a damaged appliance. Lauren, I made a mistake. Lauren, I let people get in my head. Lauren, we don't have to throw away 11 years. Lauren, please just meet me. No lawyers. Just us. Rachel responded for me. John is willing to communicate regarding legal, financial, and property matters through counsel. He will not participate in private emotional conversations at this time. Lauren hated that. She sent a message through Rachel that said, he doesn't get to shut me out after shutting me down for years. I read it 3 times, not because I believed it, but because I wanted to be honest with myself. Had I been emotionally distant sometimes? Yes. Had our marriage needed work? Yes. Could loneliness explain why she felt vulnerable to attention from someone else? Maybe. But loneliness didn't change her passcode. Loneliness didn't ask Brooke to lie. Loneliness didn't let Diane coach her on when to tell me. Loneliness didn't sit beside me at dinner and laugh while her family made me the punchline. There were too many choices for her to keep calling it one mistake. The divorce moved forward slowly, painfully, and without the clean Hollywood justice people like to imagine. I didn't get everything I wanted. Neither did Lauren. There were financial losses. There were miserable attorney emails about the mortgage, shared expenses, and who would take responsibility for which accounts. There were papers delivered by certified mail that made my chest tighten even when I knew they were coming. At one point, Lauren tried to argue that my leaving the house showed I had abandoned the marriage. Rachel answered with dates, messages, and the legal notice. That issue didn't go the way Lauren wanted. At another point, Lauren claimed she had been forced into financial panic because I canceled her card. Rachel answered with the account record showing she had only been an authorized user on a credit card solely in my name, and that shared obligations were still being handled appropriately. It wasn't thrilling. It was paperwork. It was receipts. It was staying calm even when calm felt like swallowing glass. The house was eventually dealt with through attorneys. I refused emotional phone calls about the mortgage. Lauren wanted to meet there one last time to talk about memories. Rachel told her office no. I signed what needed signing. Lauren signed what needed signing. The process cost me money and sleep, but it gave me distance. The family kept unraveling in quieter ways. Diane's reputation as the wise moral center cracked after the voicemail spread through the relatives who mattered. She had spent years lecturing people about vows, loyalty, and family dignity. Then everyone heard her telling Lauren that I didn't need to know until Lauren decided where she was landing. Harold, who had spent most of his life avoiding conflict like it was weather, finally found words when the consequences hit his own home. Grace told me later that he and Diane fought for days. Not because Harold was suddenly a hero, but because he realized how many people Diane had pulled into the lie by asking them to stay quiet. He called me once from his own number. I let it go to voicemail. "John," he said, his voice rough. "I should have asked questions earlier. I didn't. That's on me. Lauren didn't just ruin her marriage. She made us part of it, and I let that happen by not wanting to know. I'm sorry. I saved the voicemail. I never called him back." Brooke had the hardest time losing her role as the funny insider. People started asking why she had lied in the group chat about Lauren staying with her. Her own comments from the dinner got repeated back to her. The screenshot she accidentally sent me made it impossible for her to pretend she had just made one joke after too much wine. She sent me one message a few months into the divorce. "Brooke, I'll admit the joke went too far." That was it. Not, "I'm sorry I helped hide your wife's affair." Not, "I'm sorry I humiliated you in front of everyone." The joke went too far, as if the joke had wandered off on its own. I didn't respond. Aunt Grace was the only one from Lauren's family I spoke to directly after that, and even that was limited. She called once to say she had told Rachel she would confirm what she knew if needed. Her voice shook the whole time. "I know it doesn't fix anything," she said. "No," I said, "but thank you for saying it anyway." "I thought staying quiet was staying out of it," she said. It wasn't. That was maybe the most honest thing anyone in that family said. The divorce was finalized in early spring. Rachel emailed me first. "It's done." I read those two words sitting at my small kitchen table in the place I had moved into after leaving the hotel. I had a mug of coffee in front of me. Just one mug. For months, making coffee had hurt because my hands still reached for Lauren's cup without thinking. Cream first, then coffee, no sugar. Some habits outlive love in the most insulting ways. That morning, I made mine and stopped there. I expected to feel victorious when the divorce became final. I didn't. Mostly, I felt tired. But it was a clean kind of tired, like finally putting down a heavy box you should have never agreed to carry alone. Rachel mailed me the final copies. I put them in a folder. I didn't frame anything. I didn't post anything. I didn't celebrate with some dramatic rebirth dinner. Caleb came over with takeout, sat across from me, and said, "You look terrible." I said, "Thanks." He raised his container. To looking terrible and being free. That was the first toast in a long time that didn't make me want to leave the room. A year after the anniversary dinner, Lauren contacted me through Rachel because of paperwork connected to the former shared mortgage. There was one signature she needed from me, and she wanted me to be human about it. Her email was forwarded through Rachel's office. "John, I know we've both been hurt. I'm asking you not to make this harder than it needs to be. We shared 11 years. Please be human about this." I read it twice. The old version of me would have answered carefully, trying to prove I wasn't cruel. That version of me had spent too many years auditioning for fairness in front of people who had already decided I was the problem. I told Rachel to handle the paperwork and nothing else. Diane also tried around the same time. She sent a message through Harold asking for a private meeting like adults. She said there had been enough damage. She said healing required humility from everyone. Rachel declined. Brooke sent another message from a new number. "Brooke, I know you hate me or whatever, but I was under a lot of pressure too. Lauren put me in a bad spot. I shouldn't have joked at dinner. It went too far." I blocked the number. Then Lauren sent one final message through Rachel. It was short. "I made one mistake. I wish John could remember that I'm human." I asked Rachel to respond with one sentence. The affair was one choice. The dinner was another. Letting your family laugh was a third. Rachel sent it exactly like that. Lauren didn't answer. I don't know what she tells people now. I know some relatives still think I was too harsh. I know Diane probably still says I exposed private family pain. I know Brooke would rather remember herself as someone who made a bad joke than someone who helped build the stage for it. That used to bother me. I wanted full accountability. I wanted every person at that table to sit with me one by one and say exactly what they did. I wanted Lauren to stop hiding behind loneliness long enough to admit that she didn't just betray me in private. She allowed me to be humiliated in public because she thought my restraint meant I would absorb it. But needing them to understand kept me tied to them. So I stopped needing it. My life is quieter now, but not empty. I make coffee for myself. I keep my phone away from the table when I eat. I answer messages when I want to, not because I'm afraid silence will be used against me. I learned that privacy is not the same as secrecy, and calm is not the same as weakness. I also learned that leaving quietly can be louder than shouting when the people watching expected you to beg. I didn't disappear because I was broken. I disappeared because I stopped auditioning for a family that had already made me the joke. They thought I left because I was ashamed. The truth is, I left them alone with the shame they created. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.